Welcome to Wisdom Talk Radio, a collaborative community of explorers in conscious living. Welcome to today's episode of Wisdom Talk Radio. This is where we explore the depths of conscious living and how to live an expanded life. Join us to be inspired, encouraged, transformed, and to tap into a deeper experience of joy and of possibility. What is spiritual awakening? What does it feel like? What does it mean? How does it change your life afterwards? Why want that spiritual awakening? These are some of the questions that I'll be exploring with today's guests, so come along for this journey. I'm Laurie Seymour, host of Wisdom Talk Radio and CEO and founder of the Baca Institute, home of the quantum connection process. You can go there to discover your unique connection with the essence of who you are by taking the quantum connection quiz. Why quantum connection? We're each designed to directly connect with Source, period, but in our own way. And knowing your own archetype style opens a deeper connection for you with the universe. That connection, this connection, is the secret to creating what you want in your life. Because who you are is absolutely and exactly who is needed. My guest today is Natasha Sumner, who I met a few weeks ago, maybe more than that, I don't know, but it was just such a lovely conversation, and I'm delighted to have her here. Natasha grew up in a small South American country where storytelling and imagination first shaped her path. Now based in Dallas, she is the author of Accept Who You Are, and she is a spiritual coach who guides others into alignment and authentic self-expression. Blending intuitive wisdom with practical skills, she creates spaces for transformation. Feel that. She creates spaces for transformation. That's what's needed. That is what's needed. Her work invites listeners to embrace deeper self-acceptance and to live from a place of love and wholeness. And just before we started today, we were talking about what home is and how the ultimate truth is your own inner connection with yourself. So, because that's so much what I speak about all the time and firmly know. Welcome, Natasha. I'm excited to have you here with me today.
Thank you. Speaking of space, thank you for holding space for me. It's my pleasure and honor to co-create in this moment with you.
Yeah, we will co-create this. So maybe since I just gave mention to that the path within, there's so much noise in the world. Everything from, what somebody demands of us to our own expectations of ourselves to what are we going to make for dinner tonight. How do we embark on that inner journey to our own inner guidance, to our own inner connection?
Yes, it starts with sitting with the self and getting to know the self intimately. Many years ago, I talked about intimacy from my own perspective. Like if you broke the word down, intimacy, it means into me, I see. And that sight and knowing does not come from looking outwards in the external world. It's about it comes from looking inwards. Yeah. And you're able to do that when you sit with yourself very quietly and you tune into stillness and silence, and you observe and notice what arises in those moments when you're with yourself, when the ego loses its grip, when the ego puts down the script.
Because I am a meditation teacher, and people will so often say, to begin with at least, I couldn't get beyond the busyness of my own mind. I just kept thinking.
Yes. And the key word there is get. They are efforting. Get implies a pursuit of something,
yes,
as opposed to complete surrender. And it's perfectly, I think, normal for people that are new to sort of the meditation process. But with experience, that resistance falls away. Meditation is not, the process of meditation itself is actually to connect you to the heart. Many people go into the process of meditation thinking, okay, I'm going to have visions and I'm going to have all of these, exciting experiences, which are definitely possible. But a key to meditation is learning to surrender and allow whatever unfolds to unfold. And that is where the magic lies.
So talk to me about surrender. What is it that you mean by surrender, and how is it that you help or encourage people to surrender?
So surrender to me is synonymous with what I call the void, the space of potentialities.
Oh my God, wait a minute. We have only talked once before, and I feel like you're using my words, my language. This is amazing.
That's why we're here. So many people think of the void as an empty space, but it's actually full of potentialities.
Yes.
It's potentialities that are not known to the ego, but it's known to the higher self. The part of you that has the sort of the broader perspective, the mountaintop view. And the thing about these potentialities is when you get into that space of stillness and silence, which is your natural state. And I said before, this is the place where the ego puts down the script. Yeah. Right? Like the ego has all of these different scripts, all of these different things, right, that we want and need, right? All of these narratives and stories that we create. But what the ego wants and what the soul needs are very different. And so part of surrendering is the recognition of, first of all, going into allowing yourself to be in free flow, putting down the fear of the unknown, allowing yourself to flow towards the unknown, not needing to know all of the answers, but realizing that in that state of free flow, you are better able to access all of the potentialities within the void that an ego does not know.
Yeah. Tosh, I so believe that, and I know the experience of that surrender into that place that we think of as empty, the void, but is so filled with creative possibility.
Yes, and it's inviting us to understand that what lingers there exceeds our wildest imagination.
Yeah, yes. So it's nothing to be afraid of. It is
Yes.
the unknown, and that can be from the place of the ego is scared of the unknown because the ego likes control.
Absolutely. And the soul is in a state of transformation. It's in a state of becoming.
Say more about that. That's an interesting way of positioning it.
So as we evolve, we get to know ourselves intimately, more intimately. So the theme of intimacy comes up again. And the perspective of who we are broadens. It's like looking at ourselves through a multifaceted crystal. Yeah. Seeing ourselves not just through one lens, but seeing ourselves in this sort of like multidimensional way. And And I lost my train of thought. But seeing yourselves, seeing yourselves in this multidimensional way, and intimacy allows us to be able to deepen our perspective and broaden our perspective about yourself. I lost my train of thoughts completely.
Okay, so let me see if I can
Rewind.
reconnect that.
Mhm. And
So with intimacy, there is that sense of continuing connection. And when we don't trust it, there's something that falls apart. When we can, because you're not talking about it in a linear way.
yes. I remember what I was saying.
Okay.
So you may have heard the saying, "As within, so without." So
Mm.
as we familiarize ourselves with our multidimensional nature,
Hmm.
right? That external landscape has no choice but to match it. So the external world gains like nuance and texture because that coloring is happening within.
Yeah.
That coloring is happening within.
So there's another side to that I've been experiencing. I mean, I've experienced over and over again, but very distinctly or differently right now, which is I can look to the outer world and see that reflection. So I'm seeing my own changes by the way in which people are responding to me differently, by what's
Exactly.
showing up. It's like, obviously I'm showing up differently because the world, my world, my external world is giving me all kinds of different feedback than I've ever gotten before.
And that's so beautiful because when it happens, you recognize Earth as a playground itself. So many people go out into the external world and they understand the concept of reflection,
Hmm.
right? And they look to their experiences, to for feedback, for their
Mm.
own growth,
Hmm.
their own their own places that needs illumination, what I call the shadow aspects of themselves.
Hmm.
I believe that this is a continually evolving uh, recognition, right,
Hmm.
within the collective.
Hmm.
And it represents a shift, I think, at a collective level. Because now when you go out into the world, right, it's very beautiful. There are flowers, there are people, there are dogs, there are trees, right? But I always say I go out into the world not just to experience all of its beauty, but to also to see myself,
Mm.
but to also to see myself in the
Hmm.
eyes of everything else that is reflected back to me.
So that brings me to thinking also then about intimacy and to fleshing that out. Um, Years ago, I was studying a process called guided imagery and music, and for my final, and I went through the whole training process, and I had to write a research paper at the end of that, and I did a number of sessions with couples with guided imagery and music, which just really takes people deeply into themselves. But I was working with the how do we use the relationship, or how do we explore ourselves in relationship with another, because there's something about the power of that, the intimacy with oneself, that can take us more deeply into the intimacy with another, which can take us more deeply into the intimacy with ourselves.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful question. It's a very beautiful question. But I believe it starts with self.
Hmm.
I believe it starts with self. Conscious intimacy is being able to look upon another and to be able to see the divinity within them.
Hmm.
Um, but it starts by seeing the divinity within your own self.
Yes.
And when you see the divinity within, when you love yourself, you're better able to love each another.
Hmm.
When you see yourself as divine, you're going to see others as divine. So, regardless of how they are showing up in the world,
Hmm.
whether they are, acting from a place of alignment or not, you're going to see that how they are behaving, that's just the personality aspect.
Exactly.
That is not who they are at the core.
No.
You're going to be able to hold the vision of who they are at the core so strong
Mm-hmm.
that they themselves may be tempted to turn around. I think about this as I remember there's an example, that comes up in my mind of a kid that is misbehaving in school and has a
Mm-hmm.
pattern of misbehaving. And everyone around that kid constantly tells the kid, oh, you're so bad. We're going to send you into a detention camp.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a very almost like certain trajectory, for this
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
misbehaving kid. But then there's one teacher, that shows up and suddenly tells that kid, you are not your experience. I see you regardless of how you are, showing out or showing
Mm-hmm.
up. And that sight is a very transformative sight because it offers a mirror to the other person that is so clear
Mm-hmm.
that they can see themselves. It can give them pause. They can see themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
so going back to, this question about reflection, um, the world offers a mirror, not just for us to see our shadow aspects,
No.
but also for us to see our light.
Exactly. Exactly. And I love that you say, that misbehaving, whether it's on a grand scale, of an adult, or whether it's of a child, is, as you say, just the personality. It's like it's I don't know. I remember I've sometimes said, I don't have to like your act. I don't like your act.
Mhm.
But when we forget who we are, that's all we have for the moment. And we think that that's all of who we are. And when we remember that who we are is so much more than just our personality, when we really can deeply connect with that, then we offer that to someone else as well.
Well, absolutely. And that's where the transformation happens. Because at
Mhm.
the core, everyone just wants to be seen and heard.
Yeah.
And to be able to go out into the world and to be able to meet a clear reflection,
Mm. Hmm.
I feel that's the highest act of service, right? That we can provide in the world.
And so that's a lot of what I think you are offering to others right now.
Yes. And if I may share a vision, one of the most magical visions I had.
Please, please.
I had a vision many years ago, and they come to me like in a dream state, but they have a different flow, where I can tell whether it's a vision, whether I'm remote viewing, or whether it's something else.
Hmm.
In this vision, I was actually going up a stair, and on both sides of the stair, there were homeless people. And they were very, grungy looking, very tired, very hungry. And I was walking, as I moved up the stairs, I quickened my pace. And a voice in my inner voice said, stop and look, because that's how the higher self talks to me. It
Hmm.
comes through as
Hmm.
an inner voice I can hear in my head.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
stopped and I looked at a child that was looking back at me. And
Hmm.
as I did, the exterior, the avatar fell away, and this light emanated from their third eye. And it was the most beautiful, transfixing light that I ever saw. It was the most, and I saw that behind the avatar, behind the physical body, I saw the pure form of each and every person, which was pure light. And that
Hmm.
was what was emanating from the third eye. And I could not tear away my gaze, Laurie. And I moved my eyes from, the child to every single other, person that was on this step
Hmm.
that was initially homeless. And the most, I saw how beautiful they were. And I realized that this must be how the higher self and how our angels see us, as a pure ball of spherical light, the most beautiful. This is our divine nature.
Hmm.
Only if we can see ourselves as such.
There's something so powerful in that. There's many things very powerful in that story, but one of the pieces is be aware of our own judgment. Be aware of how we move about the world and say, oh, I don't want to, get close to that person because whatever the X, Y, or Z is, because whatever the reason is. But we're not looking, we're not seeing, we're
The
not
divinity
seeing the
is
divinity. We're not seeing, I am God. I see God here. I see God there. And when we can look for that, we drop into a different place within ourselves.
yes,
Or maybe it's the
yes,
other way. We drop into that place within ourselves, and then we're able to say, oh, you chose this particular way to show up and experience whatever you needed to experience in this lifetime. And that doesn't preclude this light of presence within you.
yeah. The illusory boundaries fall away,
Mm-hmm.
and we see ourselves as part of the divine. It's what I call like unity consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not being able to look at another person without seeing yourself
Mm-hmm.
within them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's a beautiful shift. It's a very beautiful shift indeed.
It is, and it's an important one because if we're to trust our inner guidance,
Mhm.
the inner guidance doesn't come from a place of judgment. Inner guidance doesn't have judgment, it has discernment. And that's very different than judgment. Judgment is still from that place of our old stories and our old assumptions about things and the way that life works, and our assumptions about somebody else. But when we embody our own presence, something changes dramatically in life.
You get to see yourself from the perspective of the higher self, which is you.
Mm-hmm.
Because the higher self sees you only through the lens of love,
Yeah.
regardless of how you're being. I've had instances in my past where,
Mm-hmm.
I was not the best version of myself.
Mm-hmm.
But when I started to commune with my higher self, one of the very first things that it said is how much I'm loved.
That's one of the things that I think is a really important discerning point. If your inner voice is one of judgment to yourself or criticalness, that's not the inner voice of presence.
Yes, because who you are, the higher self does not judge, it doesn't criticize, it doesn't compare. And going back to the theme of interconnectedness with everything else and
Mm-hmm.
seeing the divine in everyone, you come to realize that when you judge another, because you are part of that collective energy,
Mm-hmm.
you are indirectly judging yourself.
Yeah. So the piece of the inner voice of love, which is not, oh, gee, everything is rosy and everything is okay and la, 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 la. It's not that place, my experience of it, at least, of bliss, that love really has such clarity to it, that experience of love.
Yes. Clarity, not just clarity, it has clarity, it has presence, and it
Mm-hmm.
has lightness of being. It's being present in a moment,
Mm-hmm.
stripped away, right? From all of the programming, all of the voices, all of the thoughts. It's that state that people who have near-death experiences talk about.
Mm-hmm.
When you get into a car crash,
Mm-hmm.
and boom, right? The world stops. But what stops is actually the ego goes quiet. And in that stillness, you are able to meet yourself in the most clear, with
Mm-hmm.
the highest clarity there
Mm-hmm.
is. And when I work with people, that is the level of clarity that I guide them back to. It's not something that they can find outside of themselves. It's something that they can discover within.
And how did that, and this is not a one piece in answer, I'm sure, but what was your process of coming to that?
Oh man, Laurie. So I've had many what I call dark nights of the soul experiences, but many of my insights come through experience. I many years ago, I remember going through the world, starting my job as an engineer and getting into sort of like the corporate world, and being offered a reflection that did not feel true and resonant. You know, I found myself smiling when I didn't really want to smile. I felt myself performing in a mirror. I am someone that there were all of these sort of like, expectations. Like, for example, just you and me sitting down and talking, all of these like non-verbal cues that we're conditioned to give each other. When someone says something that sounds really good, you have to like nod your head in approval. Even if you just want to sit quietly and listen from a place of stillness. I had one lady that I was interviewing with many years ago. She was like talking to me, and each time she said a sentence, she would look at me, and I would just be still, actively listening to her. And at one point, she said, "I'm looking her directly in her face," and she says, "Are you listening? Are you listening?" But all of this culminated into me getting into a space where I became deeply unhappy with myself because I did not feel like me. And I had this very revolutionary moment where I decided that I was going to make a change radically. I remember shaving my entire head. I decided I was going to go back into the world, and I was not going to do anything that I didn't want to do. I was not going to say anything that I didn't want to say. And I was going to be very precise with my word. Little did I know that that quest for precision was really me seeking to express the truth of myself. And so the sort of the path to that clarity was when I got the courage to show up authentically in the world. When I got the courage to push back against sort of like societal expectations.
But how did you do that, Tosh? What brought you to that?
Yeah, it's just the real what the sort of the initiation was. I was in a place that where I had almost like lost myself, lost my sense of self, lost who I was, and wanting the desire to reclaim that was so strong. I think that was sort of the impetus. And it started with little moments of truth, right? Like observing what you're saying, right? And observing what you're saying, observing how you are being, and taking little moments, taking little actions to ensure that your word, your deed, contain the highest truths. And even if it's not palatable to the ears of those that are hearing it. And the more I did that, the more that resistance that I was feeling before fell away. And what came into its place was what I would call lightness of being. In my inner world felt lighter the more I allowed myself to be authentic and truthful. And that radiated into my external world. The external world felt really, really light. And that's when I started to see auras. And what was happening was really a revelation of the core self. Because who we are underneath all of the subconscious programs is really light. That is our true state. And if you think of light, like if you were to, envision a beam of sunlight, it is boundless. It is brilliant. It does not have any sort of like limits. It seeps through the crack of the path of what I call the path of least resistance. And so when we allow all of that subconscious programming to fall away and we embrace that lightness or natural self, we enter that flow state. We start to flow like light because light is really our true state.
I love that how you came to that, or at least part of your process of that was looking closely at what was resonant for you, what was true for you. And I'm using resonance and true and really to be almost synonymous. True for you being that which you felt as you. And so in your communication and in anything that you would say or do, it was those pieces of what is true, what does feel true. And so it returns us to having to be acutely aware and sensitive to our own inner environment.
Absolutely. And the more we practice that,
Mhm.
the more embodied that state becomes.
Yes. Yeah. And then it becomes something that you can rely on.
Yes, because you know your inner world and you start to trust it.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yes. Yeah. So, so when you're working with a client, what does that look like? What's the experience of that?
So it starts with the reason, right, that that client is coming to me, because I believe there are no accidents. So if someone is drawn to you for some reason, there is a larger purpose,
Mm-hmm.
either for that person, or for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually look at a state that that person comes to me in. So sometimes when clients come, they are very stressed, they're very plugged into sort of their 9 to 5, and they're
Mm-hmm.
just seeking like solace outside of that. And it may start with me just sitting down with them and inviting them back to that space within, that sanctuary within,
Mm-hmm.
calming them down, getting them into a space that is not where they're, not operating out of the, sort of
Mm-hmm.
the gamma, the beta, brainwave state,
Mm-hmm.
which allows like the right and the left brain to be a little bit more synchronized. When that happens, it allows for their own energy to sort of like flow through them. And I'm better able to tap into the energy of their higher self. One of the sort of like the techniques that I offer to clients is called past life regression therapy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a what I call a transformed version of Dolores Cannon's method.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was built on many, many years of practice. Like one of Dolores Cannon's protege, the lady that trained me, she used that technique for many years. And after working with that technique for 20 years, I was her first protege, her person that she trained.
Mm-hmm.
And I used that to tap into not just what I call parallel timelines.
Mm-hmm.
Many, as in the physical world, we tend to look at timelines in a linear way, and we
Mm-hmm.
see past, present, and future. But in reality, all of these different timelines are happening simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
So I work with the subconscious of a client to bring through experiences in parallel timelines that are relevant to the current one and where they are. So it may be an experience that they may have had as a tree. I'm just giving you something hypothetically, where they learned, the practice of presence, right? Or it
Mm-hmm.
may be a timeline that they had, let's say, of a healer, where they learned that healing is actually a state of wholeness. It's very holistic. And it happens, right, when we are able to perceive the perfection of our own being,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm able to bring true snippets of those experiences that have very applications for whatever it is that they're experiencing within their current reality, whether it's stress, whether it's an ailment, whether it's disease, which is actually dis-ease.
Mm-hmm.
And the important thing is that guidance is not really coming through me, right? It's actually flowing through their higher self. And
Exactly.
I'm facilitating that.
Yeah.
And at the end of the session, the client is able to ask whatever questions that they have, and I'm able to flow right through that information, through their higher self, through
Mm-hmm.
their own vessel,
Mm-hmm.
and provide them a recording at the end of the session where they hear their own selves talking
Yes.
to themselves.
Yes. And that's a profound experience because then people start to feel into the trust of that, the trust of themselves.
Absolutely. And they realize that they have easy access to, the higher self, which is actually ingrained knowledge of creation that everyone has access to
Hmm.
before it's brainwashed out of them.
Hmm. Hmm. And what's next for you? What's your sensing of what you're being called into? Especially because this is a new time. It feels like that we're entering into, and with that is replete with all sorts of different possibilities that weren't there before.
It's such an interesting question because the notion of clock time is not really a part of my reality. I'm very much anchored in the present
Hmm.
and allow my heart to guide me to what's next. So, many months ago, I wrote and published this book, Accept Who You Are. Since then, I've done a lot of white papers exploring the nature of consciousness.
Hmm.
I've talked about and I've shared that, on my online platforms. I've written a
Hmm.
children's book.
Oh,
Yes, that I am looking forward to publishing. Um, and so for me, the unknown, it's really what's next is really opening up myself to all these probabilities, these potentialities that even to me, to some extent, at least to the conscious mind is
hmm.
unknown, and allowing myself to be in this space from a place of trust. And also it really creates excitement when you do not know what's next.
I completely agree with that, and I I often will say comfort is highly overrated because that experience of the unknown, for me, it's always been my path. I
Mhm.
don't want to keep doing the same old thing. I can't because if we're
Absolutely.
really here in aligned with our own heart, then that's going to take us into the potentialities.
And like you, Laurie, I'm not a creature of habit. I've always been jumping. Okay, I did meditation for a little bit, and then it was like on to the next thing. And
Oh,
I
come and do
remember,
Turiya meditation. It'll be very different.
yeah, and I remember when I was like in the corporate world, that was like from the front, like looked down on. Like
Mm,
this person doesn't really know what they want. They're just jumping all over the place.
mm,
But later on, I realized that it was really there was nothing. It was really a very beautiful process. It was just me exploring, all these different paths of creativity that we all,
mhm,
have
mhm.
access to. And you said something very interesting before when you talked about comfort, because I believe that there's a big difference between resistance, right? When we're
Mhm,
resistance, we're really pushing to realize uh,
mhm,
this egoic need, and it arises out of the ego, versus conflict, feeling some contrast, right?
mhm,
That presents itself when you are operating out in a zone of uncertainty
mhm,
and you're challenging the ego's comfort zone and security.
mhm,
And the ego is resisting. You're trying something new. The ego, of course, doesn't like it because its
mhm,
security is threatened. Uh, but this is not resistance. The difference, resistance, and how you can tell the difference is when you still feel very passionately about it, when it still excites
mm,
you and sparks your
mhm,
heart,
mhm.
but you may have a bit of discomfort. That is not resistance. That's just the
No,
ego, the ego's reaction
right.
to you trying something new.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
so the key in those instances is not to acquiesce to the discomfort, but to
mhm,
allow yourself to push past the discomfort and to explore what lies on the other side.
mhm, mhm. To explore what lies on the other side. And there's always another side. There's always a next piece or a next step. It's part of evolution, but for me, I also see it's the way that consciousness is explored. There's always a next step, and I'm feeling I've been feeling the new frequencies coming into place within me, and I don't have content with that yet. I have the experience, and it behooves me to stay with that experience so that I can decode them.
Yes, yes. And we are at such a pivotal point within our
Hmm.
collective experience.
Hmm.
There's a lot of talk about Triad Atlas and all of the frequencies and energies that it's
Hmm.
bringing to us.
Hmm.
Uh, this is really a space where you can capitalize by creating inner space within yourself to be
Yes.
receptive, to those frequencies. True grounding, true going into nature, returning back
Mm.
to your natural self, your natural state.
Mm.
So what you said feels very, very resonant. A lot of times, especially as spiritual, evolved beings, we are constantly chasing like the next step.
Hmm.
But I feel that this entire period is asking us to take a pause
Hmm.
and because it's also important to create space to be in the receptive mode.
Yes. Yes.
It's a cyclical process of going in and out, going into the external world and experiencing yourself there, experiencing all of your creativity,
Hmm.
exploring what makes you joyful, and taking the lessons and then returning back within
Hmm.
to into a space of introspection, which is
Hmm.
when the integration happens.
Right.
And I talked before about observing the sort of like the cyclical nature of my own journey. It's always this push and pull, right? This interface with the external world, and
Yeah.
then this return back to self. But the integration point, what I call the 0 point, is
Hmm.
very, very important because that's when you are able to integrate everything that you've learned, which allows for the evolution of the soul.
And that's what we then get to bring into the world. And that's the next, the next piece of that cycle is taking all of that which has been created and creating it and bringing it into the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Tosh, where can people get a hold of your book and accept who you are, and where can people find you?
So the book is in all major distribution channels. It's on Amazon.
Hmm.
I do encourage, recently it's also been introduced to the Barnes& and Noble's network and in a
Hmm.
few Barnes& and Noble stores within Dallas. So I highly encourage readers to get a copy from the Barnes& and Noble's website.
Hmm.
My own website is called ascend5d.com. That's where I have all of my offerings for people that are looking to reconnect with
Great,
themselves.
great. And that will be in the show notes, but I also love to hear, to have that on the invoice, shall we say.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
wonderful. Tosh, thank you so much for being with us today. It's just it's a delight to be with you.
Thank you. And likewise, I enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. And I want to thank our listeners, our viewers for being with us. Thank you for being with us today at Wisdom Talk Radio. Remember, you can join us here regularly for more of this kind of wisdom, discovery, and illumination. And please leave us a review, because when you do, that helps to share this kind of wisdom. To me, it's what helps transform the world, is that the more of this that people discover, hear, take in, and resonate with, the more that ripples out. And for you, for your own journey, for your own personal quantum connection, go over to the Baca Institute and take the quantum connection quiz today. You can also pick up your own copy, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, or wherever, of Unconditional Remembrance, Your Connection to Source. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us here at Wisdom Talk Radio. We wish you well in your conscious explorations. For more information and to join in the conversation, our website is wisdomtalkradio.com or at Wisdom Talk Radio on Facebook.